So recently I had a trip booked to Chicago and I wanted to get some really good photos whilst I was there of the general architecture and vibe of the city. I knew I was going to take my Fuji X100VI with me, and so I needed a film simulation that I could try out that would really work with that lovely vintage American backdrop. And so I settled on something a little bit different. It's Classic Cuban. So I dialed it into my camera, flew over the Atlantic, and here I am trying it out in the windy city. Enjoy. We started our trip down by the lakefront with a nice little morning walk, which allowed me to get some photos. I really like the way that yellows, oranges and browns are represented on this film simulation, but it does come at the expense of some of those green tones. You'll see here again, the yellow leaves and the brown of the house look awesome. The greens, a little bit lifeless. I think some of these shots are really amusing. The way that this photographer is directing the bride made me chuckle. At this point, I think I'd realized what colors were really working with this simulation, and so I was just looking for any reddy browny yellows. And you can see this lady's coat, along with the buildings, just matches and goes well together. I've been wanting to get some weird angle shots of boats for a long time in London, but it hasn't quite lined up, so I was happy to try and get some in Chicago. I think this one is quite amusing. You'll see the hunt for yellows continued, and it was autumn, so perfect season for it. This is one of my favorite photos from my walk through the center. She just looks like she's preaching and loving every second of it. I also used this opportunity to test out the inbuilt image stabilization by taking some handheld long exposure shots. I think these turned out really nicely, and they're some of my favorite photos from the trip. I think no trip to Chicago is complete without stopping by the classic Chicago theater sign. I used the Pro Mist filter on this just to get a nice little bit of glowy light going around the outside, and I think it worked really well. These shots were really giving me real life Gotham City vibes. I love the film simulation on this one, and it just looks so vintage and classic. I of course had to try it on some portraits as well, so we went to a coffee shop and I got Liz to take some photos of me, as well as taking a photo of Liz with her Chicago Marathon medal. Proud of her. So overall, what do I think of this film simulation? Well, I'm really impressed. I think it worked really well with the architecture and the stone and brickwork on many of the buildings around Chicago. I loved the underlying warmth. It was really nice to see that, and I think it worked well on those shots down by the lake as well. One thing to note about this simulation is I think it has quite a pronounced grain effect. There's some processing that happens after you take a photo, so there's a little delay after you press the shutter button, and you just have to wait until it processes the photo and the JPEG before it's then ready to shoot something else. That was fine. I wasn't shooting anything particularly fast moving. I think I managed to choose the perfect location to try this film simulation out. I think that golden tone worked really well with the buildings and the weather at the time. I'm not sure how this would work if I went to a slightly colder place or if I went there in winter and there was snow on the ground, etc. I think it might throw the whites off a little bit too much for my liking in that respect. One place where I was kind of not too impressed with it was when I was doing portraits. I think it just threw the skin tones off slightly too much. I still got some nice shots. I think the ones of me inside the coffee shop it worked really well for. You can see I've got that reddish brown sweatshirt on, along with the stone and the brickwork in the coffee shop behind me, and all of that ties really nicely together, and the color tones really work with this simulation. But if I was wearing a blue top or a green top, let's say, I'm not sure it would have looked as good. Anyway, this simulation ranks quite highly for me, I think. I don't like it on the greens and I probably wouldn't use it out in nature, but for city shots and maybe beach shots as well, I think this goes down really well. It's a classic one for like an American city, or if I was over in Los Angeles and chilling on Venice Beach, let's say, this might be a simulation that I would definitely dial into my camera ready for that trip. I like some of the shots with the muscle car as well, just the overall vibe really gives like 50s, 60s to me, and I enjoyed that. Overall, if you're looking for a vintage and kind of funky simulation, then this might be the one for you. So let me know in the comment section down below. What did you think of some of these shots that I got throughout my time in Chicago? Is this a film simulation that you're going to give a try? I'd also be interested to know which one you think I should try next. I've got some exciting trips coming up and I'm pondering which one to choose. If you liked videos like this, I come out with a YouTube video every week here on my channel, so please consider subscribing. And that's it from me. I will see you all next week.